You know, the members of the Phoenix Committee telephoned me at home and they said, your novel is this year's winner of the Phoenix Award. Well, at first I thought it was one of those robocalls myself. I said, I'm not interested. So they called back and convinced me to listen. And I thought, how could any committee award a prize to a children's book that has in it so many, many bad words? And I told them that, and they laughed at me. Anyway, what were you doing in that committee, you people? What were you all smoking? After I'd hung up the phone, I realized what had happened. The world has moved on since 1997. By the way, I was 67 when that book came out. 20 years ago, when my book was published, bad words are now a necessity in books and movies. What self-respecting kid would ever go to a movie that had no bad words in it? So thank you for this award. It's an honor for me to accept it. Those bad words in my novel are all true. That was the way things really were when I was a kid in Liverpool. Profanity was an important tool of childhood communication. Bad words spoke the truth about our feelings. On the question of truth, Ernest Hemingway, whose original manuscripts often contain profanity, he said, when you've read something by me, you actually experience the thing. You can't do this without putting in the bad and the ugly, as well as the good and the beautiful. The way things really were, the ecstasy, the remorse, the sorrow, the people and the places, and how the weather was. My 20-year-old children's novel contains swearing and vulgar expressions, one of which I'm ashamed of. But very often, you know, at that age, we did, anyway, used expressions that we didn't really understand, just to show off, I suppose. But the members of the Phoenix Committee, it turns out, are moderns. They're lovers of the bad and the beautiful, lovers of the ugly and the splendid, lovers of the remorse and the sorrow, the people and the places, and are keen to know how the weather was. Hemingway would have approved of your Phoenix Committee. For those of you unfamiliar with my novel, to heck with it, I'm going to talk about this plot a little bit. The narrator, Jamie Monaghan, is a thinly disguised James Hennigan, or Hennigan. I used my own childhood to furnish most of the pre-voyage details. There was no Bleecker, of course, I made him up, but most of the other characters were once a part of my life. My pals, Charlie, Gordy, and Bren, and Bren's grown-up sister, Madeline or Dorothy, probably 19 or 20 or so. From next door, she lived on one side, and the Bleekers lived on the other. She, Madeline, she of the red curling hair and angel voice, who liked to drop in and gossip with my man, not mom, my man. If she stayed long enough until my dad got home from work in the late afternoon, my man made tea in the big pot. And when we'd had our tea, my dad might ask Madeline to sing a rebel song, an old Kamalia, as they called it. And of course she would. Madeline loved to sing. I was only 10 years old in 1940. I didn't know much. But one thing I knew for sure, I was in love with our next door neighbor, the bold and beautiful Madeleine O'Doherty. I often use the names of real people from the past. Why? Because I keep losing people. I keep losing people. Where are they now, Charlie, Gordy and Brad? What became of them? And the lovely Madeleine of the red curling hair? Including their names in my book raises the hope that I will find them someday, like a message in a bottle. Bleecker, in my novel, is an unlikely hero. A scowl like a wild boar, he wears a thrift shop jacket, scuffy, too big for him, sagging shoulders where the padding has slipped, indelible smut marks on the sleeves. The other kids at school didn't like his appearance and cocky swagger. Bleecker unsettles them, so they urge the biggest kid in the school, Stinky Corcoran. He earned that name. To put Bleecker in his place. The fight takes, moving into the present tense, when I'm talking about my whole life back then, and I talk about the story a little later, in the present tense, and in the past, I'm using the past tense, but I get mixed up, so it's a mess. Anyway, the fight takes place right after school, in the glassy blue air of late summer with hardly a cloud in the sky. Here's the chapter 1 abbreviated account of the fight, important because it points to the theme of the book. Both boys are reluctant to start, but eventually they raise their fists. A tap on the cheek from Stinky provokes Bleecker to punch Stinky in his soft belly. They trade blows for several minutes. Bleecker attacks Stinky in the belly again. Stinky, seriously annoyed by now, lands a roundhouse right to Bleecker's jaw and a left hook to his eye. Bleecker's tooth punctures his lower lip. Blood. Bleecker goes down hard on the grass and remains still. Crowd yells, "Ooh." Yuck, that must have hurt, says Gordy. It would be no disgrace for Bleecker to stay down. We all know it's a mismatch. We feel guilty. Fight's over, someone shouts, but it isn't over. Bleecker staggers to his feet, wipes away the blood from his mouth, then rushes in like a spitfire, all 8 guns pounding, fists flattens Stinky's nose, which makes Stinky mad as hell. He becomes a one-man blitzkrieg, charges at Bleecker, fists whirling. A hard straight left to the jaw has Bleecker crashing to the ground again. Silence. There must be more than 100 kids there in the playground. They wait. Bleecker doesn't move. That has to be it, says Gordy. But Bleecker rolls over, slowly, climbs shakily to his knees, takes a trembling breath, and pushes himself upright. We watch. Everyone stops breathing. Bleecker's facing the wrong way. He slowly turns and staggers, almost falling, and faces Stinky once again, fists raised. Stinky takes a step back, frowning, unsure of what to do next. My pal Bren O'Doherty rushes in and raises the arms of the 2 fighters. "Well done, Stinky," he yells. "Well done, Bleecker," whistles and shouts from the crowd. "I declared this fight a draw," said Bren. "A draw," everyone shouts. "Good old Stinky." Stinky stares at the crowd and grins. In 1939, Germany was the bully. It built up its army, invaded its neighbors, Austria, Czechoslovakia, Poland. Then one by one, the Netherlands, Belgium, Luxembourg, France all fell to the might of the German army. Britain stood alone. We're next, said the Brits as they looked across the English Channel towards Europe. They'll come for us next. We must protect ourselves and our children. So they sent many of their children away from the cities, out into the English countryside, or to Ireland, or Scotland, or Wales, away from Hitler's bombs. If you were not evacuated, you huddled together with your family in an air raid shelter, or you slept in an underground train station, listening to the explosions above you, fully aware that the German bombers were out to kill you. But Britain had a secret weapon: Prime Minister Winston Churchill. In a radio broadcast to the British people at the time of the French surrender, Mr. Churchill said, "We shall fight. We shall go on to the end. We shall fight on the beaches. We shall fight on the landing grounds. We shall fight in the fields and in the streets. We shall never surrender." At the time Mr. Churchill made this speech, I was 10. My brother Gerald, we call him Jerry, was 9. Mum and Dad sat listening to Mr. Churchill with tears in their eyes. But the Germans were coming, there's no doubt about that. Jerry and I were not evacuated. We stayed home with our parents in Liverpool. "If we're to be killed by Hitler's bombs, Jack," my mum said, "then it's best we all go together." Well, that suited us. We wanted to stay and be a part of this exciting war. Wanted to search for souvenirs as we walked to school the morning after an air raid. Razor-sharp shrapnel, shreds of barrage balloon silk. Dad built bunk beds under the stairs so Jerry and I could sleep safely through the air raids. They found that in London on the early raids, that when houses were collapsed, that the stairs remained a safe place for people if they were underneath. In other words, the house might very well collapse on top of us, but except for a direct hit, we were probably okay. But we didn't want to sleep. The war was exciting. We wanted to see it. Dad usually sat outside on the backyard step with one or two of his Irish buddies smoking woodies, cigarettes, and watching the night sky, barrage balloons, the beams of searchlights, bright red and green marker flares. We nagged until we were allowed out of our bunk beds for a minute or two, hoping to see a German Junkers bomber slide down a searchlight beam after a hit by a British anti-aircraft shell. Or, "Look, there's a Heinkel." There was so much going on. It was so exciting. Away from my childhood and back to the book. On the Liverpool dockside where Jamie's dad works, I'm in the present tense now, a luxury passenger ship, the Benares, is set to sail for Canada. Jamie's dad wangles him a berth aboard the ship. Jamie doesn't want to go, but he has no choice. "For only a short time, Jamie," says his man. "You'll be safe away from the bombs." Bleeker's mother, who lives next door, persuades Jamie's dad to find berths for her 2 children. So the 3 children join the other 97 children on the ship, making an exact 100. There are 90 kids from low-income families, passages paid by the government, and 10 kids from better-off families, passages paid by their parents. So, 90 low-income kids, 10 well-off kids, for a total passengers and crew, 406 people on that ship. The Benares is a part of a convoy of 19 merchant ships, all sorts of ships spread out over 3 miles of ocean. Benares is the flagship in the center. It's a luxury ship. It was used by the British government to send their best and brightest officers to India, and they had the best of everything, best of absolutely everything. The convoy is protected from German submarines by naval destroyers. And the Benares is in the center, leading the way. Jamie and Bleecker share a cabin. They arm wrestle for the top bunk. They've never seen anything so luxurious as this ship. There's electric, I think it's going to say light on the next page. Lighting, that's close. Electric lighting in their cabin and throughout the ship. They have only ever known gas lighting, even though most people in Britain then had electric lighting. And they have their very own shower. Jamie's never before stepped in a shower. He's nervous, and the steam is so thick he can't see his jolly wobbler. I'm telling you there's rude stuff in here. Also rude is Jamie's description of Gloria, Charlie's sister. Gloria was 19, with long dark hair and big blue eyes. She was built long and slim, like a British Wellington bomber, with 2 power-operated gun turrets in the midsection. We talked a lot about girls back then. Girls were a mystery, like the Blessed Trinity. Only more interesting. On the ship, Jamie, Bleecker and Elsie cannot believe their eyes. The plentiful and delicious food in a time in Britain of severe rationing. The flashing chandeliers in the dining room, the gleaming tableware, and the Indian waiters and their sparkling blue, pale blue and white uniforms with blue sashes as they push their chairs in for them, these kids, treating them like royalty as they pad silently by the dining room, bringing one mouth-watering course after another. That night, the ship waits in the river, not far from Jamie's home. They haven't even started yet, and already he's homesick. Next day, the Benares heads out of the river and makes for the open sea. It is Friday the 13th. After 4 full days of sailing, the naval destroyers leave the convoy, because they go on ahead and pick up another bunch of ships to bring back. So they leave the convoy. So now it's not a convoy anymore, really. And one of the big mistakes with this whole ship sinking was that the admiral of the fleet, who was on the Benares, should have given the order to just go and move. And it's a fast ship, could have just gone, and the U-boat would never have caught it. The U-boat was one of the latest of its kind, and it was, I hadn't planned to talk about this, so I hope you don't mind if I go on a bit. This U-boat was captained by a young man, 30 years old, a fellow named Heinrich Bleichrodt, and this was his first command, and he did not know that there were any children on that ship, on the Benares. And he wanted to sink it because it was the most luxurious looking and the fastest ship in the convoy. He wanted to take that first and then take as many others as he could. And so when I think about him, I don't condemn him for what happened. He actually he was awarded a medal by Hitler. So it's Friday the 13th. After 4 full days of sailing, the naval destroyers leave the convoy because the Benares have now reached a safe position in the Atlantic, over 600 miles from home, well beyond the area of U-boat attacks. And the captain and crew throw a celebration party for their passengers with balloons and paper hats and ice cream. The next day, September 17, there's a huge storm, house-high waves. At precisely 10 o'clock that night, the ship is torpedoed. Bleichrodt thought he could torpedo the ships while his craft was submerged, but the storm wouldn't allow that. He had to come to the surface, show himself, and then fire off the torpedoes. And the storm made accuracy almost impossible. He fired 2 torpedoes at the Benares that missed, and the third one hit bullseye. Aboard the Benares, everyone races to their muster stations, climb into the lifeboats. Gale-force winds cause the sinking ship to tilt sharply. Launching the lifeboats becomes a nightmare. The boats on this side are swinging out, and the people in them are getting thrown into the sea. Those who are not thrown out manage to hang on in flooded lifeboats. Hang on to something in the lifeboat. They're forced to sit in icy North Atlantic water up to their chests while they watch the crippled Benares take only 31 minutes to sink. The lifeboats, unless they turn over, don't sink. They're full of flotation material. A wave swamps Jamie's lifeboat. Little Elsie's washed overboard. Bleecker hurls himself into the sea after his sister. After a struggle, he pushes her up onto the lifeboat into Jamie's arms before he disappears under a huge wave. Elsie is safe for now, but Bleecker is lost. It was a long, cold night for those in the lifeboats. By the time a British rescue ship reached the scene 18 hours later, it was too late. 81 out of the original 100 children were already dead. And of all the other people who lost their lives, 63% of them, of the 406 original people. Okay, I don't want to leave you sunk in the gloom of death and disappointment, so I'll tell you that the novel does have a happy ending. Anyway, I think I've talked far too long. So thank you for your patience, and thank you once again for this lovely award. Thank you.